guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and I'm a mom of two little boys. I hope you're all really well on this lovely warm day we're having in the UK. I hope you're all making the most of it. I know we have been today. So today's video is Logan's birth story. I know I've just done Roman's birth story, so you'll have to bear with me because all of the details are a little bit fuzzy with Logan because obviously this was nearly 4 years ago. So please just bear with me and I hope that I can get all the details out for you. So if you want to stick around and listen to Logan's birth story, I would get a drink, I get a snack. I have got a Prosecco and orange juice on deck ready. So if you want to hear me ramble on about my firstborn's birth story, then please keep on watching. So obviously we're going back for nearly 4 years now. So we're going back to 2017 on my first pregnancy, which was absolutely horrendous. I hate being sick and I had severe morning sickness through a good portion of my pregnancy. Absolutely hated it. Just a little side note. So I was done. I was about done, ready with this pregnancy. I was absolutely ready for this baby to get out. I was over it, I was done. As most second-time parents know, your baby rarely ever arrives on its due date. It's usually really late on your first one, or in some weird cases it can be early. It's very rare that they're actually born on their due date. The due date came. Luckily I had a midwife appointment on my due date anyway. When we went in, I said I haven't felt anything. By this point I didn't know what labour pains felt like. I didn't know what to look for. Obviously you can read about it but you never know exactly how it feels. I didn't know what I was looking for. All I put it down to was kind of Braxton Hicks sort of pains, which I told the midwife this, and she advised for me to have a sweep on that day. So luckily I had a sweep done that day to try and get things moving. I was really hopeful because I'd heard really good things that it can kick in the labour. If you don't know what a sweep is, it is this is going to get TMI warning right now. They basically the midwives go in with their fingers and kind of scoop around in your cervix, I think. They kind of try and open the wall a little bit. On your first pregnancies, your cervix is really thick, so you've got to get rid of all of that cervix before your baby can actually come out. So that's pretty much what a sweep, well, not exactly what a sweep does, it just kind of gets things moving. Obviously I'm not a midwife, I don't know what I'm talking about, but from what it was explained to me and how it felt, is pretty much just, she just gets her fingers in there and just kind of sweeps around, the clues in the name, just does a quick sweep, and it's supposed to get things moving. And I'd heard really good things about other mums on YouTube as well. They'd mentioned about a sweeps being good, and it's starting to kick things in, and I thought it was. I did get a couple of cramps that evening, but nothing too substantial, nothing really painful. So I just kind of got a bit disappointed, to be honest, because obviously on your first, you just hope that when you've gone through the whole 9 months, you just want the baby out, really, don't you? I forgot to mention that my due date was actually the 28th of June. That was Logan's due date. So that was the day I had my first sweep. And that fell on a Wednesday, just as a mental note. So the 28th was on a Wednesday. So going back to the story. So obviously I'd had my sweep by this point and I hadn't really felt anything. I had a couple of cramps, but nothing too substantial. A bit of time had passed and booked in to be induced. I had my sweep on my due date, so I was 40 weeks from then. And they wanted me to be induced a week later, or I think it ended up being 6 days later, because we'd been in for low movement with Logan. Towards the end of my pregnancy, he wasn't moving as much as he should have been. He was always fine whenever we would go in and get it checked, because I'd always call up because obviously I would panic, something was wrong, something was happening to him. He just didn't really move that much towards the end, but obviously everything was fine. But because we'd reported 3 times of low movement, that meant that we had to go to high risk, which we initially wanted to be in low risk, because obviously there was nothing wrong with me, there was nothing wrong with Logan throughout the whole pregnancy. It was just the last month or so we had 3 reports of low movement. So because of that, we got bumped from low risk to high risk. So they didn't want me to go too far over my due date, just in case things weren't right, or there was something wrong. Yeah, drinking. So by this point, I'd had the sweep on the Wednesday. I'm going to say that like 15 times. So I'd had the sweep on the Wednesday, and I was booked in to be induced on the following Tuesday, the 4th of July. All through the weekend, everything was fine. Didn't feel anything really. So I got booked in on the Tuesday at 6 o'clock for an induction. And I wasn't fully versed on how the induction worked, because obviously things do keep changing with maternity care and things like that. Or that's the kind of vibe I got anyway. So my impression was I would go in, be induced, because they give you the pessary tablet to be induced, which is, again, TMI. It is a little tiny tablet that looks a bit like a tampon, but it's really, really small. And they put that basically inside of you. And I think I will put it in a description if I've got this right. But I'll put the right chemical or whatever it is on the bottom of the screen. I think it's oxytocin. I believe it's got oxytocin in it. And that is supposed to kickstart your labour. They put that inside of you, and previously I'd heard that once you have an induction, you can have the tablet put in and then you can go home for 24 hours and see if it works, and then you come back and they take it out. But that wasn't the case for me. So I went in and they put the tablet in and they were like, okay, you're staying in overnight. So I was like, crap. I didn't want to stay in a hospital by myself. Never done that before. Did not want to be doing that. But I had to do it anyway. So went in on the Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Luckily, we'd already packed bags anyway. We just had them in the car, so I was like, you may as well just bring them in and I'll just have them with me, just in case anything does happen. So I had the bags, had the tablet put in. 24 hours later, nothing happened. I had absolutely no pains with it, nothing, no waters, absolutely nothing was happening. So I was really, really disappointed on the Wednesday. I was really, really down. And obviously being without Sean as well, Sean not being there, made it 10 times worse. Because obviously we've gone through this whole thing together. And yeah, I had to do it by myself. So I wasn't happy about it at all. Was not pleased. They checked me in the morning to see if anything had happened. And I wasn't really like dilated. I was probably like not even a centimetre, so I was so disappointed. This was the point where I got really disappointed, and this was like early in the morning, because sometimes the tablet can work in like only in like maybe 12 hours, so just having it in overnight possibly would have worked, but it didn't in my case. So they checked me in the morning. I think it was just before dinner time, actually. I think it was just before dinner time, so I'd say about 11-ish, 11, 12-ish. They checked me. I was only 1 to 2 centimetres dilated, so I was absolutely gutted. I got really down about it, but Sean came into the hospital. He was already with me by that point, but he was like, okay, then we'll go for a walk around the hospital and see if we can get things moving. Because we'd gone for long walks and done all the whole old wives' tales and stuff, and nothing had worked. And Sean's mom actually was with us, because she was my other birthing partner. I had Sean and I had Sean's mom, and we all decided to go for a walk, and it did actually poke me up a little bit. I needed to get out of that room because it was bringing me down. It was really, really depressing just sitting there thinking about like A, being petrified about the labour for one, and B, now knowing that I was like nowhere further than what I actually started was really disappointing. So I needed the walk. So we went for the whole lap of the hospital, and all the way around I had to keep stopping because I was like, oh, something's hurting. And Sean was like, are you okay? I was like, I just have to keep stopping and just kind of catching my breath a little bit, because something would happen. And Sean's mom, Ange, God bless her, love her to death, love you, Ange, she was like, this is really good, like this sounds like it could be like early labour, because they were coming, I can't even remember, because we didn't even bother timing them, because we thought like it's just Braxton Hicks or something. We didn't even time it. It seemed pointless at the time, but they were coming like maybe every 10 minutes, something like that, and I had to keep stopping every time. So we made it all the way around the hospital. Ange had to leave, so Sean stayed with me for a little bit. And we got back in, and I was just like they were definitely getting more and more painful. And we ran into one of the nurses as we were coming back in, or it was one of the care assistants. I think it was one of the maternity care assistants. And she was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just feeling like I think these are contractions. I'm not sure, but they're coming. They're not coming thick and fast. Obviously, they were coming like every 10 minutes, but I'd never gone through it before, so I didn't know what to expect." So she was like, "Okay, and I'm gonna get some, like, what room are you in and all of that stuff." So we told her what my name and all that stuff. She said, "I'll send someone to you straight away and get you checked, because the fact that you're contracting, you're obviously, something's happening." So she ran off. She was brilliant. Like, all of the midwives and the maternity assistants in like the prenatal were absolutely fantastic. So she ran off and got the midwife for me. She came back and she checked me, and I think I'd gone up by 1 or 2, so I was 2 or 3 centimeters now. So the fact that long walk had kind of perked me up and things had actually started to move, it was great. But the problem was my waters hadn't gone. She suggested that we keep going as long as we could. Obviously, I still had to stay in. I think she performed another sweep on me. I ended up having 3 sweeps in total. I remember I definitely had 3 sweeps. I think there was obviously the first one. Then I had a second one after my tablet was removed. So this was earlier in the day, and obviously nothing had happened. I had another one then, and then she performed another one when she'd checked me after we got back from the long walk. So I've been checked. I had a sweep 3 times in the space of a week. Fun. So we'd got back to the room, and obviously I've been checked and everything by this point. And she said, like, I can kind of get into your cervix now, which was a good sign, but my waters still hadn't gone. So the next step was for me to dilate enough so that they could get in there and pop my waters. And if you've watched my first birth video, which was Roman's, you'd know that my waters didn't go until very, very last minute, until I was basically ready to push. So I must have something, I must have a really thick water bag or something, I don't know. But my waters had not gone, and they were not planning on going anytime soon. They said, "Okay, we're going to see how you are overnight, because things are obviously progressing a little bit now. So we will see how you go overnight, and then we will get you into the labour ward, which was upstairs, and get your waters popped, and then the labour will start officially." All night I've been having contractions. All through the evening I've had contractions, and nothing was helping. Absolutely nothing was helping. I'd had... I wasn't allowed gas and air just yet, I don't think. No, I didn't have any gas and air, but they said, "Do you want some paracetamol?" I took the paracetamol, nothing worked. I had pethidine, I believe. It wasn't paracetamol, it was another one. I think it was, I don't know what the tablet was. It was a tablet, and I don't think it was cocodamol, but I hated that. It was horrible. I felt like I was overdosing or something. It was really, really weird. I'm an absolute wuss. So I hated the tablet. I just wanted that to be out of my system, and it didn't do anything for my pain anyway. It just made me feel all like fuzzy and weird. So I hated the tablet. They gave me an injection of pethidine, I want to say it is. Again, I'll put it in the bottom if I am correct. I'm pretty sure it was pethidine. So they give me that. Again, absolutely nothing happened. It didn't really do anything for my pain. I was still feeling it. I couldn't sleep, which wasn't helping because I needed to rest, ready for the labour, which I knew wasn't going to be happening that night, which was on the Wednesday night. I needed all the rest I could get, and I just couldn't get any. And Sean managed to stay with me, luckily, because they weren't sure what was going to happen, or they weren't sure what time I was going to go in overnight. So obviously the changing of wards, they said you may as well just stay. So luckily they were so sweet. They put together a little bump together kind of bed on the floor for him so he could stay. He said it was the most uncomfortable thing, but he got some sleep in the end, so at least one of us slept. He was with me, but I kept him up most of the night because I was in just so much pain. I just hated it, absolutely hated it. I hate being tired anyway. I'm really, really moody when I'm sleepy. So, and contracting on top of that was not fun. It comes to about 4 or 5 in the morning. Yeah, 4 or 5 in the morning, and they've got a bed for me ready upstairs. So they end up waking us up super early. We pack everything up and we go upstairs to the labour ward. I try and get some rest there, but nothing really is working. I was allowed gas and air up there because the gas and air was already hooked up and ready. So I had a bit of that, and that was better. It was much more of a pain relief for me anyway. Love the gas and air. The gas and air was working fine. I tried to sleep in between as much as I could, but it wasn't working. I was just so tired. Like, that part of the day was a complete blank to me because like I was just so tired. Like, I can't even remember that part of the day. So we've been transferred to the labour ward by this point, and the waters were due to be broken. I didn't have a specific time, but I think it was around 9ish, I believe, because obviously Sean had been with me the whole night, and Ange had come about 6:30 to be with us. Yeah, about 6:30. So she was there for pretty much the whole day. She was definitely there before my waters got broken. I was still going through pain and trying to deal with it, but with the gas and air it was becoming a little bit easier, but I was still just so tired that I was starting to lose function. Like, I can't, like, those parts of my memory are so hazy because I was just so tired. Anyway, so I finally got my waters broken. And if you've never had your waters broken before, they use a little like crochet hook thing to get in there and pop your waters. I think I must have been about 3 or 4 centimetres by this point, so I obviously was still dilating. It was just enough room that they could get in and pop my waters, and I immediately I thought it's a great idea to take some Lucozade to obviously keep my energy up, because I've seen that some people did take some form of like Lucozade or like those kind of isotonic drinks to keep their energy up. Took 1 sip of it after my waters were broken and a couple of crisps because I was starving, and I immediately was like, oh my god, I need to be sick. So I ran to the bathroom. I wanted the gas and air because obviously I was still contracting, but it was attached to the wall, so I couldn't take it with me. So I went straight to the toilet, threw it all up, and I was like, okay, I am not touching Lucozade now at all, and just carried on with gas and air. I tried every position, and it was just getting so hard because I was so tired. Again, I know I keep saying it, but I was just so tired. I couldn't concentrate on what I was supposed to be doing, and it just became even more painful that I just couldn't handle it anymore. And I was saying absolutely no to any more drugs. I didn't want the epidural because I'm petrified of needles. So I was saying no, I don't want it. And then we got told that I haven't progressed quick enough, so they were going to put me on the drip, which I think again is oxytocin. I'm not sure, but again, I'll put it somewhere. It's a drip that you get, that they put in your hand. It's like a cannula they put in your hand to get things moving. With that, labour pains become really painful, really painful from what I've heard anyway. So they recommended that I take the epidural. They were telling me you need to take it because A, you're knackered, you're absolutely tired, there's no way you're going to be able to push a baby out, and B, I don't think, from judging the way that I was with the pains that I was just dealing with being so low still, in the dilation kind of spectrum, because obviously you need to get to 10, by the time I got to, I think it must have been like 4, it was something really stupidly low, it was either 4 or 5, and it just wasn't moving quick enough. So they said, either way, you're probably gonna have to go on the drip, and with that we would recommend you have the epidural as well because you're not dealing well with this pain, not being so tired as well. So, and I was saying absolutely not, I'm not doing it, like I'm not doing it, I'm gonna carry on, I'm pushing this baby out naturally. And Sean kind of took me aside and said, like, you can't do this, like you can't, well, obviously he wanted me to do things the way that I wanted to do things, but there comes a time where it was safety at this point. Like, it would have been a C-section if he hadn't intervened or he hadn't said something to me, took me aside and said, you can't do this, you're making yourself worse, like you're going to make yourself sick doing this, so just take the epidural and just do it so we can get him out safely, because we don't know the impact on him. Like, it's not good obviously if like it could bring on distress in him. So eventually I agreed, And I said, well, I was pushing them at first. I was saying, no, just let me get to this time and we'll see where we're at. And obviously I was no further along. So they said, okay, then we're going to get the anaesthetist down and we're going to get you the epidural. So that was what happened next. I think it was about 11 o'clock. Around that time, the anaesthetist came down. I was absolutely petrified, obviously, because I know you can't see the needle because obviously I'm facing one way and they're behind me, putting the needle in my back. But it was the best thing I could have done in that situation. It honestly was the best thing. I just could not, like Sean said, I was grey. I was a completely different colour because I was just so tired. Again, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And I needed to admit that my body was pushed to its absolute limit and I needed to rest. And without that epidural, there was no way I was going to be resting between then and the time that it took for, and the time it would have been for Logan to arrive. So I took it. And it wasn't as bad as people make it out. Obviously they're like scare you with it's like a huge needle and stuff. A, you can't see it. And B, they put numbing stuff on anyway before they do that. I mean, the thing in my hand was worse. The cannula thing in my hand was way, way worse than for the drip, than the actual epidural. Once it was in, I cannot tell you the relief I felt. It was brilliant. Like, it was so, so good. When you're at that point of pain that you can't take anymore, don't be a hero, just take it. So I took the epidural. It was great. It was the best thing. It was the absolute best thing. I needed it. So we had that about 11. It was great as well because it was, I know obviously for some people it doesn't always work or it doesn't fully numb all the way, but I couldn't feel from probably my stomach up until my knees, maybe a little bit further. It definitely from like, I could feel like my toes and stuff and I could wiggle my toes, but I couldn't feel anything in that region, like, so the whole pain was gone. I didn't have the contraction, well obviously the contractions were still coming, but I couldn't feel them. It was amazing. And then every time I felt it kind of wear off, I could just press a little button and another dose of the medicine would go into my back, and it was like relief all over again. So I finally got to sleep. From what I've been told, I went to sleep from about 12:30, 1ish. I think I went to sleep, and they told me that with the drip in, that we should be ready to push by about 3ish, because they checked me after the drip had gone in and all of that stuff. I was all hooked up and it was working a lot quicker. My contractions were coming really, really thick and fast. They could see it on the monitor. So they were like, okay, then I'm going to estimate, she was a great midwife, I'm going to estimate that we're going to be ready about 3 o'clock. So it was all down to the drip and the epidural now. The epidural to help me sleep and the drip to get things moving. Finally got to go to sleep. It was great. I loved it. So I went for a sleep. Sean tried to go for a sleep in the car, but obviously it was July. It was a hot July and we had a black BMW with leather seats at that time. So he was not going to sleep. He was not going to sleep in the car. So he tried, didn't work. He came back up and him and his mum went for a little cup of tea before everything was starting, which was lovely for them. So I slept pretty much through all of that and just woke up ready to push pretty much. So I was, even though it was only a couple of hours, I was refreshed. I had those couple of hours sleep. I thought, okay, then I can do this. I'm drugged up. I am ready. Drink break. 3 o'clock comes and it is time to push the baby out. So finally get to 3 o'clock. Everyone's back in the room. Sean's there, Angie's there, I'm there, I'm ready to do this. So we get going, or she checked me to make sure that I was 10 centimetres and I was perfectly 10 centimetres. I was ready to go. Thank God. Thank the Lord. So we got a push in and I'm not sure if it was just for me or whatever, but they said that they don't like you going over 2 hours for pushing, just because it can put a lot of distress on the baby. So we were pushing for 2 hours. Nothing was happening. Obviously they were telling me when to push because I couldn't feel any of my contractions anymore, so they were just telling me like, okay, go. And I would just push down as far as I possibly could, well, as hard as I could. But if you've never done it before, you have no idea if you're doing it correctly, and especially when you've got like drugs in your system that make you numb to that area, because I've been told that it just, well, now knowing what I know and having a natural birth, your body does just take over. And because that part was taken away from me the first time, I had no idea what I was doing. So they just said, just imagine that you're doing a really big poo and just push down into your bottom. I was like, okay. And they would let me know if I was doing it correctly and just say, okay, then just do it like that. Just do it. Because the first couple of pushes, I obviously wasn't doing it right. She was like, okay, you need to change what you're doing. And finally I got it right. And we just kept going and going and going. Sean was watching Logan's little heart monitor thing, keeping an eye on that, and it was fine for the time being, but he just kept having a check. I was pushing away, and they kept saying, okay, then we can see the head, but he's stuck. And I was like, crap, like, what do we do now? What do we do now? She said, okay, then what's happened is, as he's come down, they're supposed to turn, the baby's supposed to turn at a certain point in the birth canal to come out. And he turned at the wrong moment. I think he turned too late. It was either too late or too early. I can't remember which one. Anyway, he was stuck. So there's like a little U-bend, and he was stuck in there, and he just could not get out. Like, Sean kept seeing his head pop out for a little bit, and then once the contraction was done, he would shoot back in again. And that just kept happening. And I didn't know what to do at that point. My body was just like, okay, we're pushing away. So she said, okay, then we're gonna go the full 2 hours. If nothing happens in the 2 hours, then I'm gonna have to call a doctor in, and we're gonna need to intervene. So I was like, now I started to panic. At this point, I panicked. And I was just trying to keep focused on the end goal, on getting him out safely. So obviously we started at 3 o'clock, nearly 2 hours had passed now, so we were getting on to 5 o'clock, and he was still stuck. And Sean had looked, checking the little heart monitor thing, and it kept dipping, which was panicking me. Obviously they didn't tell me, because I was just focused on, or if they did tell me, I wasn't paying attention because I was focused on what I was doing, but Sean noticed it. And they're like, okay, then we're going to get the doctor in now. So they called the doctor in, assessed the situation, and they said, okay, here's the plan. We're going to get him out in 3 pushes. Are we now? So it was like, okay, we're getting him out in 3 pushes. I'm going to give you a little cut, which I don't know what it's called. I'll put it in somewhere. They'll give you, it's just like a tiny little cut in your vagina. Obviously, I didn't feel it, so like it was fine. It's better than tearing. So they did a little surgical cut. That was the plan. He said, we're going to do a little surgical cut, and then I'm going to get the forceps on him. And in 3 pushes, this baby's going to be out. I was like, okay. So first push, they did the cut. First push, still kind of getting stuck, but a little bit further. He was coming out a little bit more now that he had that room to get out. Second push, they all got the forceps on. Got him out a little bit, like his head was out. So we're like, yes. Sean was like, okay, his head's out, and he was getting all excited. I was like, oh, thank God. Like, he was basically here, like his little head was here. It was great. So, and then third push, finally, all of him came out, and oh, that doctor, like, I call him ghost doctor. I'll call him the ghost doctor, because he literally came in, sorted the problem, and then just breezed back out, and we never saw him again. Poof, he just went. He just disappeared. He came in, like, sorted it out, got the baby out, and then poof, gone in a puff of smoke. He was gone. He was great. So happy. They pulled him out, put him straight on my chest, and I have never felt relief like it, that he was out. He was finally out. And you can't even describe, like, the feeling when your child comes out, especially your first child, when you've never gone through it before. That overwhelming feeling Everyone was in tears. Absolutely everyone was in tears. Sean was in tears, Andrew was in tears. Like, we were just so happy that he was out and he was safe. He was healthy. So grateful for the midwives and the doctors that did all that they did. The anaesthetist, everyone was incredible, absolutely incredible. So thank you to them. So yeah, he was finally out. He was finally out. Another little funny story, actually. After he was out and obviously he was weighed and all of that good stuff, my legs were still in stirrups because obviously I still had the pain relief going through. They took the drip out, which was fine because obviously I didn't need that anymore. So they took the drip out, that was all good, it was gone. I still had the epidural in though, or I think they unhooked that at the same time, but I still had the aftermath to deal with, so they were still numb. I was waiting for the medicine to come out of my system, but it wouldn't come out until the evening. Oh god, I forgot to say. Logan was actually born at 17:38 on the 6th of July 2017, and he was £8.4 when he was born, so only £1 less than his younger brother. So I have nice chubby £8 babies. So yeah, he was out. So yeah, going back to my funny little story. After he was out and everything was all good and he was cleaned up and everyone was happy. By the way, at this point in time, after I was giving birth and everything, there was a whole waiting room of my family, pretty much, and Sean's family, waiting to hear what was going on with me and the baby. So my brother had got there, my dad, Sean's stepdad, everyone was there, which was amazing because at least they were all here for both of us. And even though they didn't really get to see him, which was a shame, but they were just happy that everyone was fine. And then my mum turned up. Don't know how she got past everybody. She snuck up to the room with a midwife. The midwife had let her in and went, "Shelby, your mum's here," and just walks in. My legs are in stirrups by this point. Everything is out. Everything is out underneath. And she just walked straight past my beaten up vagina to come and see her grandson. And I was just like, "Mom, what are you doing?" I was like, everything is out. Like, that's so TMI, I'm so sorry. But it was comical, to say the least. I mean, we laugh about it now, but at the time I was just like, why have you let my mother in right now when everything is out? I don't want my mom to see that. No. But it happened. It happened. And she got to hold her grandson. So it was all good in the end. She only stayed in for a couple of minutes, but we laugh about it now. And then she went off and everything was all good. So that is it. That is my birth story for my first son, Logan. I hope you enjoyed it. I am so sorry if it was really TMI, but it's a birth story. What do you expect? So I hope you got something out of this. I hope it entertained you a bit, if anything, or I hope you took something away from it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any birth stories, any funny little things to do with birth, then please leave them in a comment down below. I would love to read it, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.